Okay, now that the 2024 NFL Draft is a few weeks behind us and we're into OTAs, I thought it'd be a good idea to break down the top 10 draft classes of all time. Now stay tuned to find out which year of the modern era produced the best draft class. First, let's walk through the data set. The criteria we'll be using to rank the draft classes will be the number of Hall of Fame players, the number of All-Pro selections, and the number of Pro Bowl selections. Due to the Hall of Fame criteria, we'll be measuring draft classes from 1970 through 2018. Okay, let's break down the FGV, or the Football Guide valuation. Hall of Fame players are going to score 7 points, All-Pro selections score 3 points per selection, and Pro Bowl appearances score 1 point per appearance. Now let's get started. Okay, coming in at number 10 is the first of 3 years after 2011. There were 254 draft picks selected in 2011, which failed to produce any Hall of Famers as of yet. Some of the notable players for the year include Jason Kelce, J.J. Watt, Von Miller, Patrick Peterson, and Cam Hayward. 31 players, or 12.2% of the draft class, contributed to 33 All-Pro selections and 116 Pro Bowl appearances. 2011 comes in at number 10 with an FGV score of 215. Okay, our number 9 draft class of all time is 1990. The 1990 draft saw 331 players selected and produced 5 Hall of Fame players, including Junior Seau, Shannon Sharpe, Emmitt Smith, Leroy Butler, and Cortez Kennedy. A total of 31 players, or 9.37% of the draft class, contributed to 31 All-Pro selections and 88 Pro Bowl appearances. Other notable contributors include Richmond Webb, Bryce Popp, and Larry Centers. 1990 scored an FGV of 216, closely edging out 2011 and actually tying our number 8 draft class, but had 1 fewer Hall of Famer. The 8th best draft class of all time and the only year from the 1970s, 1973. The 1973 NFL Draft had the highest number of players selected on our list at 442 players selected, producing 6 Hall of Famers: John Hanna, Ray Guy, Joe DeLamielleure, Dan Fouts, Paul Krause, and Larry Allen. Roughly 7.5% of the draft class, or 33 players, were contributors to our 27 All-Pro selections and 93 Pro Bowl appearances. 1973 comes in at number 8 with an FGV score of 216. Okay, coming in at number 7, our second year from the 2000s, 2010. 255 draft picks selected in 2010, which is our second of 2 years failing to produce any Hall of Famers as of yet. Now, notable players for the year include Antonio Brown, Rob Gronkowski, Navarro Bowman, Earl Thomas, Ndamukong Suh, Eric Berry, Trent Williams, Marquise Pouncey, and Geno Atkins. 2010 also had the highest percentage of any draft class that contributed, with 40 players, or 15.69% of the draft class. The contributors combined for 34 All-Pro selections and 129 Pro Bowl appearances. 2010 comes in at number 7 with an FGV score of 231, another tie, this time with our number 6 draft class, which produced 4 more Hall of Famers. Our last draft class from the 2000s, 2007, claims the number 6 spot. 2007 draft saw 255 players selected and produced 4 Hall of Famers in Joe Thomas, Patrick Willis, Darrelle Revis, and Calvin Johnson. A total of 35 players, or 13.73% of the draft class, contributed to 33 All-Pro selections and 104 Pro Bowl appearances. Other notable contributors include Adrian Peterson, Marshall Yanda, Eric Weddle, and Ryan Khalil. 2007 scored an FGV score of 231, edging out our number 7 draft class, 2010, because it produced 4 more Hall of Fame players. All right, moving on to the number 5 best draft class of all time, takes us into the 1980s and our first of 4 draft classes from the decade, 1988. There were 333 draft picks selected in 1988, producing 5 Hall of Famers in Randall McDaniel, Dermontti Dawson, Thurman Thomas, Michael Irvin, and Tim Brown. A total of 34 players, or 10.21% of the draft class, contributed to the 31 All-Pro selections and 112 Pro Bowl appearances. Other notable contributors include Keith Jackson, Sterling Sharpe, Michael Dean Perry, Eric Allen, Neil Smith, and Chris Spielman. 1988 comes in at number 5 with an FGV score of 240. Coming in as the number 4 best draft class of all time, 1985. There were 336 draft picks selected in 1985, producing 5 Hall of Famers: Jerry Rice, Bruce Smith, Chris Dolman, Kevin Green, and Andre Reed. A total of 31 players, or 9.23% of the draft class, contributed to the 37 All-Pro selections and 109 Pro Bowl appearances. Other notable contributors include Jim Lachey, Bill Fralick, Mark Bavaro, Lomas Brown, Ray Childress, Jane Novacek, Randall Cunningham, and Al Toon. 1985 comes in at number 4 with an FGV score of 255. All right, another class from the 80s claims the number 3 spot, 1981. There were 332 draft picks selected in 1981, producing 7 Hall of Famers: Lawrence Taylor, Mike Singletary, Ronnie Lott, Kenny Easley, Russ Grimm, Howie Long, and Ricky Jackson. A total of 32 players, or 9.64% of the draft class, contributed to the 36 All-Pro selections and 101 Pro Bowl appearances. Other notable contributors include Hanford Dixon, Freeman McNeil, Eric Wright, George Rogers, and E.J. Jr. 1981 comes in at number 3 with an FGV score of 258. Our number 2 draft class of all time is the only class from the 1990s, 1996. There were 254 draft picks selected in 96, which produced 6 Hall of Famers: Ray Lewis, Zach Thomas, Terrell Owens, Jonathan Ogden, Brian Dawkins, and Marvin Harrison. A total of 35 players, or 13.78% of the draft class, contributed to the 43 All-Pro selections and 115 Pro Bowl appearances. Other notable contributors include Mike Alstott, Willie Anderson, Leroy Glover, Lawyer Malloy, Eddie George, Simeon Rice, Jeff Hardings, Muhsin Muhammad, and Jermaine Lewis. 1996 comes in at number 2 with an FGV score of 286. And now, our number 1 draft class of all time, and nicknamed the quarterback class for the number of quarterbacks selected in the first round, 1983. There were 335 draft picks selected in 1983, with 6 QBs selected in round 1, 3 of which would go on to the Hall of Fame. There were John Elway, Todd Blackledge, Jim Kelly, Tony Eason, Ken O'Brien, and Dan Marino. The 1983 draft class produced 8 Hall of Famers: Bruce Matthews, Eric Dickerson, Dan Marino, Jimbo Covert, Darrell Green, Jim Kelly, Richard Dent, and John Elway. 1983 also had the highest number of contributing players on our list at 42 players, or 12.54% of the draft class, contributing to 41 All-Pro selections and 144 Pro Bowl appearances, by far the most Pro Bowl appearances of any draft class. Other notable contributors include Carl Mecklenburg, Joey Browner, Albert Lewis, Henry Ellard, Reggie Roby, Chris Hinton, and Roger Craig. 1983 claims our top spot with an FGV score of 323, a full 37 points more than the number 2 class. And those are the top 10 draft classes of all time. So what do you think? What draft class is your favorite?